So thank you so much for inviting us to come and present to you today. My name is Peter McLaughlin. Hopefully you can see my screen there on the right. Is
Yes,
that
we
okay?
can.
You
Yes.
can indeed. Okay, brilliant. So yes, I am here today on behalf of Bipolar UK, which is the national organization which is there to support anyone who is affected by bipolar, be that people with the condition themselves or their friends and family. But we're also here today on behalf of the Rotary Bipolar E Club. So that is an international cause-based Rotary club. It is fairly new. It's just been going for over 6 months now. And so that's a really exciting new club for us to be able to talk to you about today. And of course, our very special guest today is Nikki Chin, the singer, or sorry, the songwriter and record producer, award-winning and writer of many songs that I'm sure many people here know. And he is also a member of our Rotary Bipolar E Club and ambassador for Bipolar UK. So it is an absolute pleasure to be here and to be able to share a little bit more about some of the work that we have been doing and are hoping to do with our Rotary clubs around the world. And so just to start us off, you may not be aware, but this week is actually the week of World Bipolar Day. It happens on Saturday, the 30th of March, which is been chosen after Van Gogh's birthday. He um, famously had bipolar as diagnosed after he had died, but he had obviously a very troubled life and didn't have any real support there in that sense. And so it really does bring home the message and the importance of being aware of bipolar, but also reducing the stigma. And also to celebrate people who have achieved many great things who have bipolar. And you know, the message there is really that people can live full, productive lives if they're properly supported. So that is what we are trying to do. And in terms of how this all came together, Bipolar UK actually has a partnership with Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland. And so we have now got into the second year of that partnership. And it's been wonderful working together with all of the clubs in the UK with our various different initiatives that we'll be talking about later. But of course, as you can see there, Gordon McAnally, he was really leading this as well to help bring it about because he knows how important it is. He's got a family connection with the cause and really had it as one of his core objectives is really to bring this about and to talk about this partnership and mental health more widely, but of course bipolar because it is one of the ones conditions that's still very much misunderstood in mental health and does have a lot of stigma attached to it. And so it's been through this wonderful partnership that we've been really able to reach into the communities here in the UK, but not just in the UK. Online, you know, we have made connections throughout the world, and we've been able to do that with yourselves and your group here and everyone that's on the call. So we're ambitious in our outlook, and we're looking to make these connections internationally as well as within the UK to help raise awareness of bipolar, be that the symptoms and behaviors that could be associated with it, as well as the support that could be available. So this partnership has been great, and we've got a summary of what has happened in the past year as well to show you. But in terms of one of those outcomes, it's really been the formation of this Rotary Bipolar E Club. So this is one of the first, I believe, cause-based clubs in Rotary, and it's open to anyone who would like to join or take part, and that could be a family and friends of someone with the condition. It could be someone with the condition themselves. It could be clinicians, mental health advocates, anyone who wants to be involved and make a difference there. And of course, as a Rotarian members yourselves, you are welcome to join our open discussions whenever we're looking at these things. We've had the pleasure of welcoming John to a number of meetings. I know Ken has been trying to attend, but time differences can always be challenging. So we are hoping to be able to welcome him at some point. But yes, we're online, just as this group is. And so we do have a reach that can go across the world. And we have monthly speakers that we organize. So we're very excited. Tomorrow we have a really great conversation to mark the lead up to World Bipolar Day. I'll send the link in the chat after this.
Okay.
Going to be having one of
Mom,
our
what kind of grapes you want? What kind of
correspondents.
grapes you want?
And so they will be having a dialogue with a very famous young environmentalist person here that's called Bird Girl is her nickname, Maya Rose Craig. And so Anushka Jones is the TV presenter, will be having a conversation because they both have family members impacted by bipolar. And so it's going to be a really interesting discussion for us. We're not always usually as high profile as that, but we do get international guests. And so we had a really good conversation with a person called the Bipolar General, who's a former US general who has bipolar, and he shared his experiences with us. It was a really fascinating conversation. And we've also had speakers from Bipolar India. We do have a Bipolar France speaker coming along, as well as someone who runs an organization in Florida in the States speaking soon. So it's really interesting to get these experiences of what's happening in these different countries and how their healthcare systems are addressing bipolar as an issue, and to see what best practices and things we can learn from each other. So if there is someone here in the audience who has got some connection who would perhaps like to speak or take part in that, I would advise you to please reach out to us after this, and we would love to hear from you. And we're based in England. We've got our registration in District 1145, and so they've been really helpful as well for us, and just getting us started and spreading the news to all of the traditional clubs. And so what we like to do is we like to work with the traditional clubs, in particular with awareness stalls and things of that nature. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen, that person there is our secretary, club secretary, Steve Boyce. He's amazing. He does so much great work with our club, and he is partnered here with another Rotarian, Judith Pratt, who's she's got a clinical background, and she has a keen interest in bipolar, but she's from another Rotary Club, and so she has joined up with him here in this occasion to have an awareness stall. And so that's how we like to be able to partner with those traditional Rotary clubs, going and spreading the word in their local communities. And so we've got a number of those types of events that we're currently working on, as well as some of the campaigns and projects around raising awareness. So lots of interesting activity, and I'm sure there's room for us as two clubs to collaborate as well on some of those global initiatives. I know we've briefly touched on this, but yes, there's a lot of work that's happening there. In terms of bipolar itself, I do want to give a bit of a heads up here. We will be discussing the topic of suicide. So please, if anyone does not want to be part of that, please do not listen to this part of the conversation, and take a moment to turn off your speaker. But it is important as well to highlight bipolar in its entirety. So it is a condition that impacts over 1 million people in the UK. It's around 2 to 4% estimates globally of the number of people that have bipolar. And what is it? So it's a lifelong mental illness, and it's really characterized by changes in mood and energy. So on the very lower scale of the low mood, that can lead to very severe depression and suicidal thoughts. And at the very higher end of that scale, it can be expressed as high mood and high energy, typically hypomania being in the area where you may feel very productive and very sort of content, but then that can tip over into mania, to feelings of paranoia, and it can lead to impulsive actions, spending, psychosis, and ultimately could lead you in hospital really with that situation. So it's conscious to be aware that people with bipolar can experience these symptoms and quite a wide range of moods. Not everyone is the same. And so people have different ways in which they have treatment and support. And so it's important to just know about those different symptoms. And we've developed a mood tracker to be able to look into that and help people to be able to monitor their moods, and also a mood scale that really highlights some of those behaviors that people can experience in those different moods. So with regards to some of these facts, these are really based around some of the averages here that we have. So 1 in 50 people, as I've mentioned, in the UK have bipolar, a condition that can affect up to, we estimate, around 5 loved ones, so family and friends that are directly impacted. And so we work together to help support those people as much as people with the condition. It is typically symptoms would come around before the age of 21, so between 17 and 21 would be when bipolar symptoms usually first appear, but it can appear at any time of your life. It can be triggered by an event that happens. It could be triggered by childbirth or something that traumatic that happens, a loss. And so it is really important to be aware of that. And also that there is a real big misunderstanding around the condition. Even within the healthcare clinical side, there is a delay in the UK of around 9.5 years to get a diagnosis, which is incredibly long time. And of course, that means that people do not get the proper support that they need because they do not have that direct care pathway. So we're really looking to help make a difference here, and we can do it nationally, but also internationally in raising awareness. And so with that, it is it's really sad to share that it is estimated that 1 in 5 people with bipolar will take their life because of the lack of support and the mix of other reasons that come with that. And it's really shocking that this number is dramatically increased with younger people, over 50 times more with compared to their peers. And so this is really a tragic situation that's happening right now. And this is bearing out in research that's global, so it's not just national research. And so this is showing as well that the suicide rates, unfortunately, as well with women, are almost 44% there of the people with bipolar, as opposed to 25% in the general population. So there is a real issue that needs to be addressed, and it highlights the urgency of why we're doing this and trying to raise awareness. In terms of what we're doing in the Bipolar UK side, we do have a campaign right now that's going on, Message Your MP, to highlight some of these stats. So the MP being the Member of Parliament, and to try and get questions raised in Parliament and to bring this on the agenda. And so there has been a number of successes there. We have managed to get politicians to raise a number of questions and to get involved in supporting us. A very sad case there you can see on the right-hand side was someone, a young woman called Megan Barnes, who unfortunately took her life, who had bipolar. And so this is, a campaign that's really been around that as well. And her father, who's been a big voice in this movement to raise awareness, because it is really impacting people here and it needs to be addressed. So with regards to what we do as an organization, we at Bipolar UK have a mission here to empower everyone that's affected by bipolar to live well and fulfill their potential. And so how do we do this? We do this through frontline services. We have peer support groups, which involve people with lived experience of bipolar who volunteer to facilitate meetups within their local areas. And so that we have about 70 plus groups that are active around the UK. And some of these are online, some of these are in person. And so they really provide that peer-to-peer support. It's really important to hear from other people who may be experiencing the same thing as you, and how they've managed to help and live well with the condition. We do have our e-community as well, which is a online forum for people with bipolar so that they can get instant chat and support there, and then also a callback service and email for people who are looking for those conversations directly with people in our organization. So we do not offer emergency help. That would be the emergency services. But we do offer those other things whenever the situation is not an emergency. So with regards to our own resources, I've mentioned already, we have a mood tracker app. We are looking to have this in other languages as well. So this is an international side that we will probably be looking into a little bit further. And our mood scale on the website, as well as many different webinars talking about subjects that are often not covered in other media or in other organizations that are very specialized to bipolar. Hypersexual behavior is a symptom that is being discussed tomorrow as part of our events for World Bipolar Week, as well as advanced choice documents, which is a really a new discussion around the treatment of how people want to be treated whenever they're sectioned in hospital. So with that, there's a lot of resources and things that people can easily access online on our site. We do have campaigning as well, as we've highlighted. We've set up a bipolar commission at the UK government, which has been looking into this over the past number of years and has produced a series of really surprising findings in their reports. And so some of those I've already shared with you in these slides. And then the most recent development that we got is our research team. That's just 2 people within our team that are leading on some of those research studies that are national mainly, but we're also looking at international academic partnerships. We work primarily with Cardiff University here and the University of King's College London. And so some of those partnerships around new therapeutic treatments for bipolar, looking into mixed states and suicide and all of these different areas. And so really important that we're able to tie all of this together strategically to try and make a real impact and difference. So it is important for us to try and empower people to live well. And then this slide, I think, does a really great job of just highlighting some of the power of peer support that you can see there. I felt like a huge weight was lifted from me, along with the lifting of shame, embarrassment, and the fear of being judged. I realized I didn't need to hold off these thoughts and beliefs about myself. I wasn't alone. And so that, in a combination with other treatment and support, can really make an impact to people whenever they're having these really challenging experiences. And so with that
excuse me, Peter, can I just remind everybody to turn off their microphones, please, to mute themselves? Try to find where that's coming from. Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Yes, absolutely. So as I said, we've been in partnership now with Rotary and over the past year. And so this video gives you a summary of some of the achievements that have been made over the past year of that partnership. So let me just play this.
It is a privilege and a pleasure for me to join you today at this official launch, the chartering of the newest cause-based club in Rotary, the Rotary International Bipolar Club.
Thousands, actually tens of thousands of people who would also love to be able to take action with Rotary as well and to join this amazing Rotary network as I've done.
So that is a really nice video. It just summarizes some of the impact there that's had from that partnership. And that's, as you've noticed there, 59% increase in our service provision over the past year, which is huge. We are a national charity, but we're only a team of about 25 people. So to be able to do that and to reach many more thousands of people has been, incredible for us to be able to support that many more people. So it's really been through the kindness and compassion that people in Rotary have been able to get the word out there to their communities. Just as we've heard here today earlier with Diana saying about all of the great things that the power of Rotary can do, and having people who have been inducted like Leslie into the club, who are able to bring her expertise and wisdom to some of the great work that we're doing here. We have a number of people similar to her that have a clinical background, and those people are really important to us as well in helping guide us into where we would like to go with our different projects. So with regards to that, I am going to take a little bit of a pause from speaking. I know I've been speaking for quite a while, and so Nikki is really the reason I'm sure many of you are here. Nikki is a really well-established singer-songwriter. He has written some of the biggest hits that you can imagine. Living Next Door to Alice, of course, Lonely This Christmas, and Mickey, among many others. And so he has been an incredible ambassador for Bipolar UK, and most recently, part of the Rotary Bipolar Club. So it's been a real pleasure working together with Nikki and being able to go out to other Rotary clubs and working on our own projects to advance awareness of bipolar. So I will turn it over now to Nikki Chin to share a little bit more about his own personal lived experience story with bipolar.
Thank you very much, Peter. I'm going to talk today about something I know quite a lot about, living with bipolar. It's something I've done for most of my life. It's been a tough and often chaotic ride. But I found out on that long and winding journey that there is a light at the end of the tunnel that is not the threatening light of an oncoming train. It is, in fact, a light that signals you don't have bipolar is not a life sentence. To talk about living with bipolar, I think the best way is to take you on my own personal life journey. At 16 years old, I was so unwell that I had to be taken out of school, and I was in hospital. I had been diagnosed with depression. I didn't really know what that was at that age. I thought being depressed was, feeling a bit sad, frame of mind. I knew I felt a hell of a lot worse than that. But now I was being told it was an illness. With the typical catastrophic thinking that accompanies depression, I decided I would never get better. And no one could convince me that I would. Depressed ears are deaf ears to anything even remotely positive. The illness was all-consuming, unrelenting. My young life had been turned upside down, changed beyond all recognition. Depression does that. I had been ambushed by an enemy I had never even heard of, something called mental illness. I didn't realize it then, but I had just met my nemesis, who would shadow me for the rest of my life. Indeed, a couple of months later, my mood suddenly shifted again. I became overexcited, elated, and then depressed again. And the diagnosis was changed. Highs and lows, ups and downs, manic depression. These days, more fittingly known as bipolar disorder. Over the years, living with bipolar has had its challenges, to say the least. Dealing with the inherent mood swings is one of them. Hypermania, mania, depression. 3 very simple sounding words. 3 not so simple mood states. And they are all part of one very serious, potentially life-threatening condition. The mood swings, they are the bedrock of bipolar. Hypermania, an elevated, overexcited, and unrealistically overconfident state of mind, accompanied by unimaginable feelings of euphoria. I feel as if I can conquer the world. But wait, there's a slight catch. It's all a bit of an empty promise. It's one of the ironies of hypermania. Those feelings of omnipotence are too short-lived. Wonderful while they last, but they don't last. 1 minute they seem real, and the next they are gone. A genie in a bottle, a hypermanic fantasy that ends far too quickly. A bit of a con trick, actually. Mania, to accurately describe full-blown mania, is an almost impossible task, other than to say all hell breaks loose. The whole box of tricks goes flying right out of the window. Everything speeds up. Fast becomes faster, and faster becomes furious. I can't sit still for 1 minute. I'm climbing up the walls and back again. It's chaos. This is mania at its most intolerable. Nothing bears any resemblance to reality, and yet, at that moment in time, it is my only reality. It should be terrifying to be this much out of control, but I'm too much out of control to be terrified. What happens next? Very simple. Newton's law of gravity takes over. What goes up must come down. And it certainly does, with a big bang. Depression, the dreaded, totally predictable downward spiral. The navigation system completely failed. There's only one outcome: the inevitable crash landing. The unavoidable horror of deep, pitch black, intransigent depression. Literally, I can barely walk. I can hardly talk. My world has come to a grinding halt. If this is hell, it is everything I ever imagined it would be, except it's worse. The reasons for living become more and more unsustainable. The lines between rhyme and reason, more blurred. When times are at their darkest, the alternative to being alive can be very appealing. But, as you can see, I survived, relatively intact. The alternative did not appeal. Bipolar can sometimes be, but by no means always, a very creative condition. It was for me. Over a period of time, I became a very successful songwriter with several #1 records. But that didn't solve anything. Bipolar doesn't give a damn about success. And the episodes kept on coming. Hospital became a second home. Success can be overrated. If I wanted a way back, if I wanted to be well, I couldn't go on like this. I would have to make some serious changes to my life. I couldn't do that on my own. It was far too big a task. I had to get help. There was only one place I could think of: a place where I knew I would be safe, but where change was a byword. Psychotherapy. It was way overdue. I had avoided it for far too long. I am very aware of how fortunate I am. Financially, I could afford therapy. A lot of people can't. And there's not a whole lot of it on the NHS. A big shortcoming on their part. For me, it has been a journey of self-discovery. It has been life-changing. It has been life-saving. And it has been bloody hard work. Therapy may not be available to everyone, but medication is. Psychotherapy is only one side of the coin. In treating bipolar disorder, medication is the other, the very important other side of the coin. It is a key part of recovery. For some, a key part of survival. Mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and sometimes antipsychotics are the way to recover from a bipolar episode. For me, that has often been the case. And for a long time, it was the only remedy I had. I've taken mood stabilizing medication for many years, and I still do. Therapy is not going to work on its own. Going into therapy isn't a tea party. I would have to dig deep, very deep. I needed answers. Answers to questions I had never asked myself before. I had buried these questions where no one, least of all me, would ever find them. Reality was going to hurt. The questions are about the past. Therapy made me look at my past, my upbringing. I didn't like what I saw, and therein lay the problem. The past doesn't lie. I couldn't hide anymore. I discovered some deep wounds that needed healing. And the memories of how I got those wounds were painful. But wounds do heal, but they leave evidence, and evidence leaves scars. My scars have faded now, but they are a great reminder of where I have been and a very useful signpost to where I am going. I often talk about my experiences and my past as I'm doing today. It's not something I feel a need to hide. But there is one thing that every time I, every time I say it, it seems to surprise everyone I say it to. I wouldn't change a thing. But what about those terrible bouts of depression, they say? Those unspeakable periods of mania. Yes, they were tough. They were very tough. But you know something? Pain doesn't last forever. Bipolar shaped my life. It is who I am. And when I look at the big picture, I've had a pretty remarkable life. I may have visited hell on more than one occasion, but crucially, I always found the exit sign. The good times have far outweighed the bad. There are very few things as exhilarating as a #1 record. Living successfully with bipolar has not been easy or straightforward. It was never going to be. And getting well has taken one hell of an effort. But that goes with the territory. Something else that goes with the territory in bipolar is something called stigma. And I didn't know Dr. Rogers was going to talk about this earlier. That vile antisocial sentiment, stigma. I feel I would be failing dismally if I didn't mention one of bipolar's greatest adversaries. Indeed, one of mental illness's greatest adversaries. Stigma is designed to isolate, punish, and undermine the mentally ill. And the tragedy is, it successfully does all of those. Stigma is ugly. It is spread by malicious bigots who have nothing better to do than cast a net of humiliation and suspicion over others. Others they have decided are inferior to them. And there's a big problem in all of this. Stigma works. Other people take notice of it, are influenced by it. It succeeds in causing pain and shame to those it is aimed at. So, because of stigma, bipolar sometimes becomes a secret. It gets driven underground. People who are ill suffer in silence and often don't seek treatment at all. They are frightened to. They might lose their jobs. They will almost certainly lose status. We must not live in a society that allows that. We have to go to war with stigma, stand up and challenge it, expose it, wherever and whoever it is coming from. There needs to be a very strong message. And this is where we can all get involved. Word of mouth. When used effectively, it is still the most powerful communication of them all. Don't get me wrong. I know we're not going to get rid of stigma, but we can do a lot to minimize it. And while we're at it, bipolar needs to be a part of a broader and louder conversation. It needs to be more visible. It needs greater acceptance by society in general. This is also partly about word of mouth, although it also needs to be promoted by the media as well, spreading awareness, creating knowledge, changing the often held view that bipolar is a crazy person's illness, largely due to its manic aspect. A lot of people think it is. Of course, it is a condition, and it is a very treatable one. Bipolar UK is very active in this area, helping people to learn about bipolar, raising awareness, and providing support services that are undoubtedly saving lives. Bipolar UK is doing an excellent job. To end on a lighter note, which is never a bad idea after such a serious conversation, here's a little anecdote. Believe it or not, there is a tiny minority who genuinely believe that bipolar could be contagious. With Kanye West out there, perhaps that's not surprising. Well, I've got some good news for those idiots. Don't worry, there will be no bipolar pandemic, and that's a fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki, and yeah, let me applause for you, yes, and for Peter also.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
I've just got a couple of slides, if I may, just quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, Peter.
Yes, so I won't be keeping it long, but just if you have your questions now of how can you get involved, so we are partnering together with clubs and individuals across the world for World Bipolar Day, and so I know that this is coming up on Saturday, and so a very easy way that you can get involved is just attending the conference that we have that's going to be on Saturday between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. UK time. There will be a recording for anyone who registers as well, and so there'll be speakers there. I believe Nikki's going to be speaking, as well as many others, around topics in the workplace and others, so that this is a really great way for you to help raise your own awareness, but also sharing it on social media and letting people know about it, because anyone is open to attend this. And of course, if there is an awareness day that you would like to do individually or with your group of people, that you can also do that. And so that's a great way of getting word out there into your own community. And so just to finally leave you with that, you can reach out to us on Rotary at bipolar.org. Oh, sorry. And that's our email address. So make sure you reach out if you have any further questions or if you want to get in part and take part in any of those activities. So thank you very much. And thank you for having us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Peter, can you share again the last slide that you had with the email address, because we...
Yeah, for sure. Hold
Yeah,
on
thank you.
Current slide. From the beginning. Okay, here we go. There we go. Take that, and I'll just leave this with you. So it's World Bipolar Day happening on the 30th of March. Our mailing list is Rotary at bipolaruk.org. And one of the challenges as well that we set people, which is completing a walk or a cycle or a run between the North Pole and the South Pole distances, and all of them get tallied together. So we've already reached the North Pole, the South Pole distance, and so we're going back again to see if we can reach that as a combined effort. So anyone can sign up online to be part of that as an online challenge. So we'll send you that information as well after this.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, again. Yes, again.
So,
Can you
hold
send?
on.
Excuse
Hold on.
me.
There you go.
Can can you send me all you all's information? I would like to connect you with my Rotary Club and be instrumental, maybe becoming partners or something with the Rotary Club of Washington, D.C. So if you could send me your all's information, and I'd love to set you up, all of you and my daughter, to speak before my Rotary Club in Washington, D.C.
Certainly, we'd love to do that.
Yeah, I can connect you with Dr. Barnes. We can do, Mr. Barnes, we can do that.
Well,
But,
I do, to let you know, I like my daughter. I have a master's in clinical psychology. So I know of all these issues. Okay? So could you please give me your information? I'm going to introduce you to our district club, to your message, and get out not only in my Rotary Club, but throughout the district in DC and Maryland. And also, my daughter, I'm a past her name. I am so very proud.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes, and I know she had to leave because she had a client coming up she had to work with. So, but we'll definitely connect you. I know there must be a million questions on this subject, and I'll open it up to anybody who has questions. But I certainly have one, and as you were talking, I'm wondering, is bipolar, is that something that is inherited, or is it what is the cause of it?
It is, talking as a layman, it is very much thought to be inherited. And I can trace where I got it from in my family. I think it is genetic, yes.
Okay, good. Does anybody else have some questions? Jeremy Opperman from South Africa.
Thanks, Ken. And thank you, Nikki. That was an outstanding presentation. That's got to be the clearest take on bipolar I have ever heard. I missed some of the slides. I'm blind, and so I didn't get all the slides, but Peter did explain mostly. I hope I didn't miss too much, but I also wanted to say I really get the stigma thing. And so one question I have, I'm a disability inclusion consultant, and this question comes up more and more, not surprisingly, as you pointed out, and Peter pointed it out before you, that, you know, it's almost like it's on the increase. And one of the oldest questions about this is it on the increase, or is it being better diagnosed, therefore we're seeing it more? Or Well, I suppose those are the only two options. So is it on the increase, bipolar, or is it just because diagnosis is better now? I'm curious. And I have one more question after that, if you could indulge me.
Speaking personally, diagnosis is better. When I was diagnosed in 1961, a lot of adolescents were being diagnosed with schizophrenia, a terrible misdiagnosis. So I don't think I know. The diagnosis is improving a great deal, but as Peter and Bipolar will confirm, it's still way behind.
Yes, we are seeing that there are more diagnoses happening, especially with younger people now. But we would be careful not to say that there's an increase because there could be many factors at play there, and general awareness of it as a condition. And we've still got a long way to go, of course, because there is a lot of clinical misdiagnosis around it still. So we're trying to work on that, on having an awareness campaign around GPs, general practitioner doctors here in the UK. So there's still a lot of work to do there.
Thank you. Now, if I might, Ken, if you'd indulge me one more question, and I don't expect a silver bullet answer, but what would you say to an employer who is faced with the disclosure of one of his staff members disclosing that they have bipolar, and perhaps even to that staff member, but particularly the employer? What would you say as mitigation to the diagnosis and the disclosure, so that that individual doesn't lose his status, doesn't lose his job? What would you both say to that employer?
That is a very tough question. I don't know if there's anything, Nikki, from your personal experience that you would say about that.
Very difficult for me to comment, and the problem being that as a songwriter, I never had a boss.
You're self-employed, yeah.
So I was never in danger of losing a job or anything like that, and a lot of my peers and colleagues weren't either. I don't know what I say to an employer, other than to hope he had the kind of empathy to be able to deal with it. That's as far as I can go, because I never had to deal with that myself.
I will highlight this conversation will be discussed in our World Bipolar Day conference. So there's a particular session around workplace. And so it's going to have a panel of experts that will be spending a full session talking about this, because it is, quite difficult to address, obviously. And we would advise people who are looking to really learn more about that to watch watch the recording if you're unable to make the conference, because it's really there that would be able to provide a full answer as to what their recommendations are.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much.
It's a great question, Jeremy. And it goes beyond bipolar. It goes beyond a lot of neurological kind of disorders, whether to disclose it at work or not disclose it at work. And there's no one answer. I kind of comes down to the situation of your boss and your relationship with your boss. I think it's better if you could disclose it and they would understand it and help deal with it. I mean, it also brings it to mind to the question of relationships. I mean, it's got to be complicated to have a relationship with somebody who's bipolar. Needs to be an understanding, I would think.
I mean, the one thing sorry, Ken, the one thing that springs to mind is that if, much like diabetes, for instance, so if an employer is more hypo-aware, that would help an employee disclosing they have diabetes. And if an employer is more aware of visual impairment and blindness, in other words, awareness surely is key here. And awareness that bipolar is not a death sentence, and certainly not a corporate death sentence necessarily, and that therapy, and I loved your emphasis on therapy as well as medication. And in fact, I really particularly enjoyed your take on the fact that therapy alone or medication alone, in fact, aren't necessarily the answer, but the combination of both. So I think if I would, from my experience, would suggest that greater awareness, as you say, empathy, but actually empowering themselves, the employer, empowering themselves with information and with positive anecdotal evidence, for instance, such as the experience that Nikki has brought out, but rather than that stigma-filled reaction that sadly is probably likely to be the employer's take on the matter. So I think awareness is probably the best answer. I think you might agree.
Absolutely.
I think awareness is everything.
You're right. Dr. McCrae, you have your hand up. Dr. McCrae is from California.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My question was, and the research that they're doing in UK, are they breaking it down in categories like race, age, underserved communities? How are they getting the data on people who are suffering from bipolar? That was my question.
Yes, so there's a bipolar commission that's been set up with a panel of experts who are representatives of different academic institutions in the UK, and so they have access to different research, and it's been then brought together, and they've been able to produce these reports, which have been able to break down some of those different demographics as well. So I can definitely share you the links to those reports. There's been 3 of them since it's been set up, and so they would be able to share a little bit more information there around age ranges and people and races and things that have particular impacts there. So I can certainly send you that as well after this.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. McCrae. Ms. Senga, who is from Malawi, you have a question?
Yes, I'm very happy with the presentation, especially from Nikki, because we have a living example and testimony. However, I would like to extend to what Ken asked about the causes of bipolar. Are there any other causes of bipolar? Because the other causes might also influence the stigmatization that the presentation has expressed. Thank you.
Yeah. So I know that Nikki has already shared, there is a lot of evidence to say there that there's genetic, that it is passed on through genes, but there are events that can trigger it. So it can be things which happen within your life that can bring it out, or you can make lifestyle, I believe, changes that can help reduce the likelihood of you going through a bipolar episode. And so there's many things that you can do to help as well with the chances of having a bipolar episode. So it's a mix, but there is a lot of evidence there to say that these are a genetic condition that is passed on.
Yeah, I also, Peter, I'm definitely genetic. But in answer to your question, other reasons, I personally don't believe that bipolar happens on its own biochemically. I do think it has a lot to do with the past, with upbringing that create emotional, psychological triggers later in life, which, by the way, is the only reason therapy works. Because it works on those triggers, and it has helped me come to terms with a lot of the emotional and psychological stuff that I believe triggered my bipolar, along with the geneticism of it. So yeah, I think there are a lot of outside causes. I've done a lot of group therapy, and I've never yet sat in a group where someone said, I had a great upbringing.
Thank you. 19 past the hour, so I don't want to keep people too much longer, but the conversation is fascinating. I certainly think we could work more together, our club and your club. Diana?
Peter, you mentioned that your club meets twice a month,
Yes.
obviously online, and you said that the next meeting is tomorrow. Would you mind sharing the link for the meeting?
Absolutely. Yes. Let me just pull it up now and I can get that in the chat. So it's a very special conversation. It's not a typical business meeting that we're having tomorrow. It's going to be with our two guest speakers. And so let me just send this link to the Eventbrite registration so that you can join us and everyone is welcome. Let me just see.
While Peter's doing that, I had one other question I happened to think about was, Nikki, you created some of the greatest music in my lifetime that and enjoyed over and over again. And you wonder, you mentioned Van Gogh, that he had bipolar. I mean, some of the greatest composers, artists in the world had challenges with mental disorders. Do you think the bipolar had anything to do with you helping to create some of this beautiful music?
Unquestionably. I think in my hypermanic phase, definitely. But I was having a conversation a couple of years ago with professor of psychiatry in Oxford who specializes in bipolar. And I said to him, how come I write very well when I'm not hypermanic, when I'm just level? And he said, because in his opinion, I had a very, very slight hypermanic strain running through my brain at all times. Not enough to make me ill, enough to help me create.
Wow.
So I think in actual fact, it's been a huge part of my career. Huge.
Wow. I mean, it's fascinating. It's fascinating that how you turn a mental disorder into beautiful things. And so it's a positive of the whole thing. So.
Yeah, well, that's why I said I wouldn't change a thing. There are times when I've been through hell, but my God, the rest of it, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, very good. Actually, Jacqueline from Egypt, before we close out, has a question.
Yes, thank you for this attractive lecture. Now we are shifted from the mental health to mental disease. And today, I think bipolar is a very aggressive disease. Here in Egypt, we have a lot, and the stigma is severe. My question is about the statistics. You mentioned in the beginning of your lecture that there is one paranoid every 50. So I ask you, how many of them can live a normal life? Is it curable disease or not? And regarding the stigma, I think that I have one friend, he is a doctor and he has son of bipolar. And he told me that this disease is more and more severe than the new plastic disease, the cancer. It is severer than the cancer because of the stigma here in the developing countries. And because if it is uncurable disease, it's about bouts, ups and downs all the time. Also, I ask you, is there any way to control this disease in the developing countries, or just medical treatment to control it? is the awareness can play an important role for the family, for the caregivers, or no? Because I think that bipolar disease, most of the families are, the relations inside the families are damaged. If they have one child or more with bipolar disease, they most probably, according to the statistics here, they will be divorced. So this is my questions. Thank you.
I don't believe bipolar is curable. It's very manageable. But the reason, I mean, I had an episode only a few years ago. I don't think it's curable, but I know it's very manageable. That's from a non-medical answer. That's from someone who's got it. Curable, I don't believe so. Manageable, very much so.
Manageable, yeah, not curable, yeah.
Yep.
And
yeah.
how many, according to the statistics, how many can live a normal life?
That would really come down to the support that the individual receives. So, you know, it would really be based on that. So, you know, you would need a combination, I think, of support, as Nikki has said, through the therapy and therapeutics, but also, you know, peer support, having people around you, having a good circle of friends and family there, you know, to be able to help you whenever you may be expressing some of those symptoms, so that you know whenever you need to be extra careful. I think, Nikki, would you agree with that?
Yes, very much so. Support is incredibly important. I got very little parental support because actually I received stigma from them. But support is essential. Self-management. Yeah, I mean, you can lead a very, very normal life. I have. Yeah, it's been interspersed with illness, but nevertheless, I have ended up leading a very normal life. But it takes work. It doesn't
majority of them can live a normal life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so.
And, just to mention, Dr. Wilson is a medical doctor, so I think part of her thinking is having a medical background. No. Jeremy, you have a question?
Thanks, Ken. Yeah, and I think the operative word that Jackie was mentioning there, or Jacqueline, sorry, was mentioning there was third world, developing countries, where the resources are not only limited in terms of financial terms, but also stigma tends to be more robust in less developed countries, I believe. And I think that's really what Jacqueline's alluding to. And I think she's correct. I doubt very much whether there is a positive outcome. And I'm not to say that it's an easy solution where you are in the UK, but, and I know what you said, Nikki, about the fact that the NHS doesn't provide a hell of a lot of therapy. It's true. But your very next words were the medication is something that everyone can, you know, access. And I think in the developing country part, and many of the members of this very group, by the way, are from developing countries. And I think it would be wonderful if we could broaden the perspective to a developing perspective as well. And I'd be curious what you thought about that.
I think it's a very interesting point because people like myself talk from the background of being in England, where there is, you know, medication is very developed, psychotherapy, although not available to everybody, you know, it exists. And I think what probably happens in developing countries is very different to anything I've experienced.
Good for you. Well done. Yeah. Peter?
Thank you. And we have another question from Nima, who's from the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Yes, it's not a question that maybe I can say where Jeremy said about development countries and the no development countries. We are in the Republic Democratic of Congo, where the women, they are traumatized and also they are abusing, bisexual abusing. And I can easily request if our network, Rotary International with Disabilities, can develop some maybe trip to DRC or to these African countries to see how, and we can also make some data and also develop some mechanism to see how we can treat this bipolar or that trauma or the source of this bipolar. Thank you. That was my question. Or is it not question, is a request if we can do exchange as group.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. And of course, in countries, particularly like in Africa, where this is a whole nother discussion, where we talk about the stigma and the stigma of having a mental disorder is very heavy on the people who have it and the families that live with it. But that's a whole nother discussion to go on. And oftentimes people hide away because they're embarrassed or feel very uncomfortable because society makes them feel uncomfortable. So that's a whole nother issue of working with bipolar, particularly in other countries. So great conversation. We could go on for hours. Once again.